How are you doing? Very good. You must be Carlos.
I am.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming to my class, guys. I think we're recording, so we'll go ahead and jump in and get started. So, Carlos, are you in K-Score right now taking classes?
Yeah, I just finished the first course.
How's it going?
I failed the test by 1 question.
Ah, the state or the national? Both. I've heard that the state has been tough for
The
folks.
state was a little tough, granted. That one took me more studying to get done.
Okay. Well, now you at least have the test nerves out of the way. You know what to expect. Have you started course 2 yet?
Yeah.
How's that going? Good. When are you hoping to be done with everything by?
Within the next week.
Okay, very good. So August, September,
Yeah.
somewhere around there. Okay. And is it Luetta?
Yeah.
Pam Ott, that's right. Pam sent you to us. How do you know Pam?
She's a better friend.
Oh, very cool. Okay. All right. And Judy, how long have you been with us? Just so Carlos knows who you are.
18 years.
18 years. Judy's been, have you been licensed longer than that or the whole time you've been here?
2005.
Awesome. And Caroline?
Almost 8 years and I own a team.
Almost 8 years and she owns a team in the market center. So awesome. All right. So we have like a nice range of experience here. For those of you who don't know, I generally share just a very quick story on me and how I got started in real estate because it'll help make sense as to why I'm the one that teaches this class. So 22 years ago, we had just moved the family here to Minnesota and I wasn't in real estate or had just gotten into real estate rather. We didn't have any connections here, right? Didn't have any family, friends, whatnot. So if you have that, you have a leg up on what I had when I first got to the business. So I decided to get into real estate and my first day in the office, I thought, well, how am I going to find buyers? How am I going to find sellers? I don't know anyone, woe is me kind of thing. And after I thought about it for a minute, I said, well, you know, I've done nothing up until this point, but spend money to get licensed. So how can I lead generate, find business without having to spend a bunch of money? And oh, by the way, what do I have a lot of? And at that time, it was time. I had a lot of time on my hands because I was a new agent. So what I settled on was a good option for me would be to hold open houses because they don't cost me anything but my time. You know, I can print flyers, of course, minimal cost. I ordered open house signs, minimal cost. The office, for those who don't know, if you don't have your open house signs, we have some that you can check out like a library book, right? So you can get started at holding open houses very inexpensively. My thought process as far as open houses was different than it is today because I was brand new. And I thought, well, we hold open houses to sell the home. Well, yes, that can sometimes be a byproduct of holding an open house. But the real reason or the true reason, in addition to exposing the house to the larger market, maybe getting an offer is it helps us grow our database, right? So your goal as you're holding open houses should be to grow your database and or set appointments while you're at that open house. So we're going to walk through the different things that are key to being able to maximize your ability to find leads at open houses. So consistency is the #1 thing I would say. And what I mean by that is as a new agent, I would hold, you know, as a new agent, holding open houses is the fastest, most cost-effective way of finding business or getting business, okay? I had to also realize that not every open house was going to be a success. And despite that, it's hard, right? Despite that, you need to have a mentality of being committed to doing them on a consistent basis all year round. And I have coached hundreds of agents over the years who, when I would teach an open house class, they'd be fired up, they'd go out, they want to set the world on fire holding open houses. But inevitably, I would get a call or a text of them being frustrated. And the text would sound something like, hey, I held an open house on Sunday from 1 to 3 and not one person came through. Just wasted my whole Sunday. I could have been spending it with my family. Now, could have been spending it with your family is true. Did you just waste your time? I would argue, no, absolutely not. Not if you follow the system that I'm going to go through with you guys and not if you're purposeful in getting ready for that open house. Because what happens is You know, you're typically putting it online. We could do that for free now. It used to be that we would spend a couple $1,000 a month on newspaper ads, and thank God we don't really do that anymore because that got really expensive.
You did that. You have.
Oh, yeah.
Did you have to do that?
Yeah, well, I didn't have to, but I did in order to be competitive and compete and advertise my open houses, because when I first got to the business, people didn't go online like they do now to look for them, right? They went to the local paper. Gosh, that really ages me. But one of the very first things that I did, and most of what I'm going to talk about today, I just stumbled upon by accident. You know, I failed forward is what I like to say. But one of the things that I was bright enough to figure out and do right away is, although the office has open house signs that you can use that are just generic, Keller Williams Premier open house, I went out and spent a couple $100, and I think I got like 8 open house signs with my name on it, my company name on it. And here's why it was smart. Because I'm going to go back to, is your time wasted if you hold an open house from 1 to 3 on a Sunday and nobody comes through? And I would argue no, because what was likely out dispersed through the city directing people to your open house for 2 or 3 hours on a Sunday? Your signs with your name on them, right? So even though someone might not have actually physically walked through that open house, I can guarantee that dozens and dozens of people drove by and saw your signs, or jogged by and saw your sign, or walked by and saw your sign, right? I happen to be very, very lucky in that I have a catchy last name because it's got the word duck in it. And so people remember it. And that's what started to take hold when I got really consistent in holding open houses. And hear me when I say you don't have to have a catchy last name, you know, or a memorable last name. You can come up with a catchy tagline, or, you know, a cool logo. Or if folks drive by and see repetitively your name enough, they're going to remember it, right?
Don't need to change our last name.
Don't need to change last name. The other thing that I did was I noticed that my ability to pick up clients on holiday weekends was exponential compared to just a regular weekend. And so because I was doing so many open houses, and I started with doing them on Sunday, and then I worked up to doing 2 on Sunday, and then I started doing 1 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, then 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. So I was doing 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. I said I was committed, right? And I was consistent. So I started looking for patterns because I was holding so many open houses, trying to figure out, well, why was this weekend really good and that one was kind of slow? Was it a Vikings game was on? Because believe it or not, those things do come into play, and they do impact your traffic at your open houses, right? Was it weather? Was it because it was a holiday? And when I started to notice, Judy, that I could pick them up, or my ability, my conversion was better on the holiday weekends, I figured this out. The people that are out looking on the 4th of July, you know, a holiday weekend, are people that have to buy.
Okay.
Otherwise, they're up at the cabin for the 4th, or they're at grandma's for Easter weekend, or they're spending time with mom on Mother's Day, right? And it's not that those things weren't important to me. It's just that I knew, particularly as a new agent, that I had to pay my dues, right? The business wasn't just going to fall into my lap, that I had to get out there and get after it if I wanted to get it. So when I say that I was consistent and I was committed, I was fully committed. And let me tell you, the agents in my office, because as a new agent, I didn't have listings yet, so I had to rely on the kindness of other agents in the office to allow me to hold their listings open. They were more than happy to let me hold their house open on Easter weekend, Mother's Day weekend, Thanksgiving weekend, 4th of July weekend, because they were up at the cabin. They had already earned their stripes. They had already paid their dues. You know, they were very happy to turn that over to me to hold open. So even if things aren't busy or they're a little bit slower, it's not a complete loss. Number 1, you're gaining experience. Number 2, you're gaining exposure if you're getting signs and you're getting them out there on the corner. So keep that in mind. The next thing I'll say, or the next piece of advice I'll give you, is be strategic and pick a winner. Well, what does that mean? Okay. So when we're in a market where there's not a shortage of inventory, there's typically a plethora of open houses at any given office that's of a decent size like ours. Because, you know, there could be a team or a listing agent that has, you know, 5, 10, 15, 20 listings. Well, they can't possibly hold every single one of those listings every weekend. So they rely on other people to hold those listings for us. So when we have a plethora of listings to choose from, be strategic in the ones that you agree to hold open. Okay. And these are the things that I would look at. I would look at a price range with a lot of active buyers. It's really fun and sexy to say, I'm holding $1 million property open this weekend. And those are fun, right? Those are fun. But I can guarantee you there's going to be a heck of a lot more buyers funneling through a $250,000 listing than there is a $1.2 million listing. Just simply because there are a lot more of those types of buyers out there that can afford 250 versus 1.2, right? So I think sometimes people get caught up in, but 1.2 would be a much bigger payday. Yeah, they're going to be extremely savvy. You better know your stuff. They're going to be more particular because the more money you spend, the more particular you become, right? I have one of my kids is getting ready to close on a house in a couple of weeks, and it's a nice house, but there were things that they had to give on in order to be able to stay within their budget. When your budget's much bigger, you can be much more selective and choosy, right? So pick a price range with a lot of buyers. The next piece of advice I would give is choose newly listed or homes with recent price reductions. So newly listed means everyone wants to get in and see it first. So you can almost guarantee the first couple of open houses you hold at that listing are going to be busy. Recent price reduction, same thing. We don't see a whole lot of those anymore because they're still selling pretty quickly, but they're coming back. I've seen a few recently. People also will tend to flock to an open house of a listing that just recently reduced its price, because sometimes that will put it in a different price category and open that listing up to a new range of buyers. The next thing I would do is I would look for homes with good pictures and online presence. So if you're holding an open house for someone else, you don't necessarily have control of the photos that are on MLS. You don't necessarily have control over the agent comments, the public comments, things of that nature. So I would always look for, and again, guys, hear me when I say, if you only have one open house that's available, take that one open house. But if you have 5 to choose from, then you want to start going down this criteria. Okay. So I would want to make sure that the online presence was really well, because my goal was I wanted as many people at the open house as possible. So I wanted it to look attractive online so that people would want to take the time to come and stop by. And then as I started getting really good at open houses, what I did was when I went from 1 to 2 open houses on a Sunday, I would pick 2 houses that were similar in price point. And my script would sound something like this. Hey, Sherilyn, thank you so much for coming to my open house. Thank you for the wonderful things that you said. All right, man, that's easy.
She was my teacher 7 years ago. And she was basically telling us about this class, and I didn't have any friends in Minnesota. And I remember a lot of people at the back were like, yeah, that's not going to work out, blah, blah, blah. I listened to everything you said. And of course, here we closed 29 deals with all open houses.
That's amazing. 29 deals.
I did exactly the same class.
Yeah.
It's funny that I'm sitting in it again.
I know. I love that you're here. You could be up here teaching this class.
I know.
So what I would do is I would say, Sherilyn, thank you so much for coming out to my open house. Thank you for the kind things that you said about the house. And I understand that it meets all of your criteria except for looking for that private master bathroom. Did you know that when I close here today at 1 o'clock, I'm actually going to be holding another house open about 1.5 miles away that has that private bathroom that you're looking for and a similar price point? Would it make sense for you to stop by that open house? Yes, absolutely. So when you're holding a similar open house later after the one that you just held, you're able to tell people coming through your open house about it. And if you can get in front of them a second time, that's extra time for you to be able to build more with them and try and pick them up as a client. Yes.
So when you would hold 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, they sometimes be the same property, or do you just do it?
You mean like hold the same open house on Saturday, on Sunday? Yeah, sure. Yep. Yep, you could absolutely, especially if I thought it was one that got good traffic.
Till date, people laugh and ask me how I did 5 open houses.
Yeah,
it's because you look at the metrics and the time, and when the students in the class were joking and laughing and said, I could not do that. I listened to everything she said and I built my business.
Yeah, you just stagger. You
just stagger them. And the other thing, one other thing, can I say that? I also experimented with timings. So most realtors do from noon to 2. I would try different timings. I would do in the morning and in the middle, in the afternoon. So if people go out having breakfast, And during that lunch hour, they would come, they would drop in, so that they would not get stuck with, oh, I have to rush from one house to another, but so they had the opportunity to come to my opens in the morning and in the afternoon, and those, and when I say afternoon, I'm talking from 3 to 5, because people do it from 5 to 7 or 6 to 8.
Yeah, I get asked a lot, like, what is the best time?
You get the joggers, you get the people walking,
yeah,
you get everyone.
I say anytime is a good time to hold open house, and I like mixing it up too, and I had to, because in order to fit in, you know, for a weekend, I had to, you know, mix those times up. So, the other thing you can do, in addition to, like, let's say that you don't have another open house, like, let's say this was my second open house of the day, my script might change on something like, hey, it's similar, but I'm going to change it up a little bit. Hey, I understand that it's missing that third stall garage that you want. Thanks for coming to the open house. This is my last open house of the day, but I am familiar with another property that is a couple miles from here. It's just about a 5-minute drive. It has that third stall garage. I'm closing up here at 3 o'clock. Would it make sense for me to meet you there at 3:15 and we could do a private showing? Or would it be helpful? Actually, I mean, don't ask what it makes sense. Would it be helpful? Very hard to say no when someone asks you if it would be helpful after you just told them that you're renting property that has exactly what they're looking for.
But make sure that they are not represented.
Well, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. Because that is important. But we also need to stop leading with that question. We're gonna go over why. Okay. Did I do that one? I did. Okay. So make sure you gather your tools. So you don't want to show up for the open house empty-handed. Make sure that you've got colored flyers with your picture, your contact information. Print a list of alternative homes priced just below and just above. You know, some people will bring an iPad or a laptop. I try not to bring anything valuable that I have to keep my eyes on, because I want my eyes to be on the people coming through the front door. So I leave my purse in the car, I bring my keys in and my cell phone, and I print a list. And I don't just print a list, but the night before or the morning of, I'm looking, like, let's say that I'm holding an open house at 300,000. I'm going to print anything from 275 up to probably 350, 3.25, even though my opens, you know, listed at 300, because oftentimes people, you know, are kind of right in the middle of their price range. And there might be something that's available to them that's a little bit less expensive or a little bit more expensive. And I want to be able to use that script and say, hey, after my open house day, I'm aware of this house that wants you to maybe I could meet you there, you know, at 3:30. Would that be helpful? Right? But I only bring one list because I've had people come through saying, can I have your list? You know, then they want to walk out and, you know, either go call the listing agent or call somebody else. And I would say, you know, I'm so sorry, it's my only copy. But if you want to leave your name and your phone number or your email, I'm happy to email you some information on these properties once I'm done. And that's how I would get their contact information. Signs, of course, we talked about that. Get them out early. You know, there's no reason why, if you've got an open house from 12 to 2, you can't put your signs out at 8 a.m. Just don't put the one in front of the house so that people start showing up, you know, before they're supposed to.
Question.
Yeah.
With that script of saying, would it be helpful if I met you there at 3:15? How do you handle that if you can't get a showing? If you have to get approval from the listing agent, you have to put a request, or they need 24 hours notice?
Yeah, I would say, so Jenna, would it be helpful if I showed it to you at 3:15? You're like, well, yeah, that makes sense. I said, okay, well, let me see if I can get us in. Give me 2 minutes, let me see if I can get us in. Okay. And if I can't get an approval right away, I'll say again, leave me your phone number and I'll text you, and if we can get in, I'll just meet you there. Okay. Open house registration or notepad, we already talked about laptops. So I have held open houses and I've employed both tactics. Seller requires that you register. Please, you know, fill in the blank, right? I've also done it without. Now, you guys have to decide what makes the most sense for you. I'm simply sharing what works for me. You may not agree with what works for me. Do whatever you feel like makes sense. I'm just going to share you my experience. Okay. So has anyone in the room ever ran an errand? You're in a hurry. You need something specific. You're halfway through the department store, and on the way to get to your something that you know you want to go get, you've got 2 or 3 people that says, hey, can I help you with something? Hi, can I help you with something? Do you need anything? Who's had that happen to them? Raise your hand. What is your typical response? No, thank you, just looking. No, thanks, I know where to get what I need, right? Even if you aren't in there for something specific, do you sometimes use that line? Why? You don't want to be bothered. What do you think happens when someone is forced to register at an open house and give their information? Do you think that they're giving you their accurate information? Think they're giving you the right phone number? Maybe all the right numbers except for the last one? Or maybe I've actually had people just ignore my request and they just keep walking, right? So when I started paying attention to body language and I started getting bad phone numbers, I started realizing I don't like to be forced to give information that I'm not willing to give. So if I had walked into somewhere, a department store to go get something, they say, whoa, before you go any further, you have to give me your name, your email, your phone number, and your firstborn, right? Like I'm not gonna like that. So I decided I don't want to do that to other people as well. And when I stopped doing that, my ability to capture their information increased significantly because then they were giving it to me willingly instead of giving it to me because they thought they had to. The other thing that I realized that I didn't like on those registration pads is typically it will say, what? It'll ask them what? Are you working with a realtor? Now, let me be the first to tell you whether they are or they aren't. What do you think that answer is? Yeah. Yes, I'm working with a realtor, even if they're not. That's another way of saying thanks, no, I'm just looking, right? So what happens when someone tells us they're working with a realtor?
We stop engaging.
Why?
Because they're already represented and they're not going to be a client.
Exactly. A couple different reasons. Number one, ethically, if someone's in a contract, we have to stop engaging. You can't interfere with the contract of someone else. Or number two, we just think, well, I'm not going to waste my time with them when 3 people are coming in the door behind them because they just told me they're working with someone, right? Stop asking that question. There's absolutely nothing that says we have to ask that question the second they come through an open house. And if you do, that's the answer you will get, whether it's true or not. So you just excluded half the people coming through your open house that day because you think they're working with someone else, or they told you that they are working with someone else, even if they aren't. Here's where you do. Here's how I unveil whether or not they're working with someone else. Okay. I'll say, Carlos, thank you so much for coming out to the open house. How did you happen to hear about our open house today? Last night, okay, awesome. How long have you been looking? A year, that's a long time. Okay, geez. So have you been, how, besides signs, how else are you finding out about properties? Online, okay, all right. So now, if he's been looking for a year, and through those questions that I just asked him, if he was working with an agent, he was like, oh, my agent emails them to me. Or, oh, my agent told me about your open house today, right? So that's how you unveil whether or not they're working with someone if you're trying to find out, right? Like just ask questions that will take them down a path where it would make sense for them to tell you. Because he's not going to feel, you know, defensive or feel like I'm trying to sell him if I'm just naturally out of no, so my agent. Oh, okay. So then I take it a step further. So Carlos, you said that your agent sent them to you. Are you under contract with this agent? Okay. Now, there will be some people who say, now you're gonna give the opposite answer. Okay, Sherilyn, so I understand that your agent emails you these properties. Are you under contract with that agent?
Should I, do you want me to say?
But you can say, well, I'm not sure, or no, I'm not.
Sure.
Or no, okay.
Yeah, he's talking setting he's stopped.
Okay.
I guess I.
Okay. Here's the reason why I'm asking that. This is I just go full transparent. Here's the reason why I'm asking that, Sherilyn. I would love to represent you. But if you're already under contract with another agent, I can't. So do you remember signing contracts with that agent?
No, I don't think so. I just assumed because he was setting me stop.
And you know what? You're like a lot of people. They assume because they've been getting emails from an agent, or maybe they've even seen a house or two with that agent, that they're automatically under contract with them. Would you be surprised if I told you that you're not, unless you actually signed a representation contract with them?
Would you?
Yeah, okay. So now I'm not doing that because I'm trying to steal someone's client, but if they're not under contract with somebody, guess what? I can work with her. She can go look at houses with me. So don't also just stop when someone says, well, yeah, my agents, they'll even say my agent is emailing me open houses. Well, are you under, like, it's okay. And you're not breaking any rules by asking the question, are you under contract with them?
The other one is when we don't they say that they are under contract and then they can't remember the realtor's name.
Yeah, I can't tell you how.
I
I have had people say, yeah, I'm under contract. Oh, okay, well, who's your agent? You're in the headlights. And sometimes I think they just forgot the name of their agent. And sometimes they're like, okay.
They say, okay, he is first and last name. And I just say, I'm just very clear with them. I said, the reason I asked is because you're buying the most expensive cash purchase in your life.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know their first name, their last name, their broker's name, and the name of the brokerage. You do understand that this is a big liability purchase, right? And that's when you see. Yeah, I've had so many people come back and tell me, we love your straightforwardness to be high.
Yeah, you know, it's funny.
It's bad.
I learned that from my husband. We were in an open house one time.
I'm very glad.
And we were, you know, it was a Minnesota night thing, right? Like I could tell that we're vibing with this husband, like a couple of things are going well. And I, in my mind, are trying to think of a creative way to, you know, figure out if they're working with someone. And my husband just beat me to punch and said, well, he goes, we'd love to be your real estate agents if you're not working with someone. Like, you know, can we get to work for you right away? And I was just like, oh, God, that was really aggressive and forward feeling. And the guy was like, you know what, this is the third open house we've been through today, and we went through 2 yesterday, and you're the first agent who passes for our business. I like your style. I've loved it with you. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, is it really? Oh my gosh, I've been doing it wrong all this year. Really bad.
Then I became a little bit more direct, and it was my mindset, because in my head I kept saying, oh my God, I'm from India. No Minnesotans will hire me, blah, 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 blah. And that was completely my mindset. One day I just said, I think I was just really tired. So I just got he said, and he said, yes.
We just get in our own way.
That ended up becoming my first 500 plus deal, and he's still selling us clients.
There you go. There you go. And it is all about mindset. You're exactly right.
It really is. It's exhausting, but it is.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so here's the other key. You've landed an open house. You've got the opportunity. Now we need to get ready for it. So advertise early. So I had a system. I would go around the office every Monday morning as a new agent, and I would pop into, you know, the Rainmakers teams, the single agents that I knew did a lot of business. I would say, hi, I'm there, and I'm looking for an open house opportunity to have it. And I'd find one Monday morning, and I would immediately start advertising it. Again, you don't have to do the newspaper anymore. Thank God, sweet baby Jesus, you don't have to do that. It's very expensive, but I'll post it on all my social media sites. I'll make sure that either they or their team is putting it into MLS, or I, you know, would ask for permission to do it myself. And then I would also go out and door knock and invite neighbors in the neighborhood, because statistics will show, and this was my script at the door. So Jan, we will do. Yes. Okay. So you're a seller. I'll come to your door. I'm the seller. Yep. Well, you're a homeowner, and I'm coming to your door. Hello. Hi. My name's Erin Duckworth. I'm with Keller Williams Premier. How are you? I'm good. Thanks. How are you? Good. Thanks. Hey, I just want to let you know and drop some information, a flyer on open house that I'm holding just down the street. You know, you already live in the neighborhood. You may or may not be thinking about selling, but sometimes people like to pick their new neighbors. So do you know of anyone who's thinking about maybe moving into the neighborhood? Not off the top of my head. Okay. Would you be all right if I left this flyer with you in case you come across someone that might be? Sure. Okay. I'd also encourage you, Jenna, if you haven't ever, you know, been to the home down the street and you're just curious about what it looks like on the inside, come on down, say hello. I've got some cold drinks, you know, some cookies. I heard they just remodeled the kitchen. They did, and it's gorgeous. You just come down and take a peek at it. By the way, I have you at the door. Statistics show that when a home goes on the market, within 30 days, 3 more homes within a 1 mile radius also go on the market. Have you yourself thought about selling these? but that's kind of like the, you know, that gets us started in the conversation. She might say, no, actually I haven't. I said, all right, awesome. Feel free to hang on to my information. And, you know, if at some point you do decide to sell in the future, I'd love to interview you. Right? Or maybe she's like, actually, I have. That's great. Hop down to the open house. Let's chat some more. Or I'd love to book some time with you to stop back over later. So go out and door knock, invite people to your open houses, get it on your social media, put your signs out early, hang open house riders. So, you know, when we have the big sign in the yard, you can hang riders saying, you know, Saturday open house 12 to 2. Get that out there, hang it on the sign. And then you can also get on the phones and circle prospect. Circle prospecting is there are systems that you can purchase, use, where it gives you the phone numbers in the neighborhood that you can call and use the same script that I just used with you, but you're doing it on the phone instead of at the door. All right. This one's very important as well, especially when you're a newer agent or when you are working in an area that you've not worked in before or aren't as familiar with. Okay, know your market. As a new agent, again, I had nothing but time on my hands. So what I made a part of my daily routine was previewing homes, and I would schedule 2 on the way in and 2 on the way home. So it had nothing else to do with my time, so I might as well go preview homes. Does everyone know what a previewing a home means? Carlos, I'm guessing you don't, so I'm gonna take a minute to explain. So instead of scheduling a showing on a home that's active on the market to show to a buyer, agents can schedule previews, meaning they're the only one that's going to show up at the home, and they're just going to walk through the home quickly, check it out. Maybe you're previewing it for a client that lives out of state. Or like me, I was previewing it so I could just get to know homes and the price points in the area. So it's okay to do that, but when you book it, you don't book it as a showing, you book it as a preview instead. Research MLS for current actives and the price range you're holding open so that you can know your competition inside and out. Remember that alternative list that I talked about? I'd bring that list, but I'd also study that list. And what I mean by study that list is if there were 10 homes, I would click on all the pictures. I would look at it. How did it compare to the house I was holding open? I would read the agent comments. I would read the public comments. I wanted to know what that house had to offer, because if someone came through my open house, I wanted to be able to recall quickly that that third stall garage or that walkout basement was one of my alternative homes so that I could try and schedule a showing with them, a private showing after my open house. I wanted to be the resource to give them information on a home that they might not have information on yet. And if I was able to book that second, a meeting with them after the open house, they literally were mine to lose at that point. If they legitimately weren't working with an agent, if I was able to spend some time building rapport in the open house, and then I was showing them that I was a go-getter and that I was knowledgeable because I knew about another property and I was willing to meet them there, if things continued to go well, I almost always pick them up as a client. So be prepared, know the market. Let's see. You must present yourself as the expert in the area. Familiarize yourself with schools attached to the home and any neighborhood amenities. This was a fail forward moment. I was holding an open house for another agent. It was a busy weekend. I likely didn't do my research that I'm preaching to you guys that you should be doing. I wasn't following my own advice. I showed up with like minutes to spare to open the house, rush in with my things, take a deep breath and start greeting people. Well, folks that were coming through, and then I had a gentleman ask me about, well, tell me about the neighborhood pool and park and trail system. It's like deer in the headlights. There's a neighborhood pool, park and trail system, all crap. Because naturally with the neighborhood pool, park and trail system, there's usually some sort of HOA fee that comes along with it. I was completely unprepared, didn't even know it existed in the neighborhood because I didn't drive by any of those on the way to the house. It wasn't very far into the neighborhood, and I thought, okay, I'm never making that mistake again. Right? So make sure if you can, and you're going to do an open house and you've not been in it before, or you're holding it for someone else, schedule a preview before your open house to go walk through it. Or at a minimum, maybe arrive 15, 20 minutes early to the neighborhood, drive around the neighborhood. Because sometimes even when I've done research, there's another house for sale in the neighborhood that I didn't see. And sometimes just driving through the neighborhood, I'll find it. Well, then I want to make sure that I have that information, because if someone's going to come through my open house, and there's another house or two in the neighborhood that are for sale, the chances that they might be interested in seeing that one also are pretty good. Okay. The other thing I would get, most of you in the room know this. I have 4 adult sons that are all in the business, and but the 3 that are licensed agents got the business at very young ages, and so I preach the open house thing. Hit the open houses, pay your dues, you'll find clients. And one day, I don't know, one of them came home and they were frustrated, and I said, tell me about your open house, let's got you down. Come on, I literally look like I just graduated high school, like nobody takes me seriously, like who's gonna wanna talk to me about listing their home or represent them and buying a home. And I was a tough mom, at that point, said, probably didn't the same thing my husband did to me when I was in tears as a new agent, like suck it up, buttercup. I was like, you know how to combat that. We have had this conversation, and how do you combat that? The way that you combat that is you come across as the most knowledgeable person that they are going to come across or encounter that day at an open house. And you do that by studying and knowing the market. Because if you're speaking from a place of confidence and you know all the details about the comps in the area, they're going to forget about you looking like you just graduated from high school. They're going to feel comfortable and confident because you're coming across confident and knowledgeable. Now, is that going to work every time? Maybe, maybe not. But it's going to give you the edge or the opportunity to be able to try and get their business if they feel like you know what you're doing.
Correct.
So know your market, do your homework. All right, morning of the open house, put your signs out early. We talked about that. Use as many as possible. Sometimes if it was like a really well-trafficked area, I would double up my signs. I'd have two right next to each other, you know, on the corner leading to the house. Dress the part. You want to always project a professional image, right? You know, in Hawaii, a Hawaiian shirt, flip-flops, pretty standard, pretty norm. I would say in Minnesota, be comfortable, but I would probably be business casual. Likely I'm not going to show up to an open house in shorts. I might be a sundress, or it might be, you know, a skirt or slacks, but, you know, likely not shorts. Arrive 15 minutes early to set the stage. I was notorious for pulling in with minutes to spare, and it's very stressful. Getting my stuff and getting in there. I'm trying to fumble my keys, my phone.
Children, right? At the time.
Yeah.
You started out with young children.
I did. They were younger. Yeah. So getting out the door in the morning.
I remember that gave me so much pain.
Yeah. Yeah. So arrive early so you're not feeling stressed and frazzled. I always immediately turn on all the lights in the house. If it's, you know, a 2-story with a basement, they're all on. I want it light and bright, lots of natural light, open up the curtains and the blinds. Turn on the game or some soft music, especially if you're backing up to, you know, a busier road or something that's a little bit noisy. It's not like you're trying to hide it, but you don't, you know, if you can mask it a little bit or distract them a little bit, you know, kind of get them used to the sounds that they're hearing. Put your flyers and business cards out, and then walk through the house to familiarize yourself with it. So if you didn't get a chance to go and preview it ahead of time, you know, walk through the house. You know, you want to be able to see, is it a walkout? Is it a lookout? Is it an egress? Take a look, step out onto the deck or the patio and look at the yard. Try and get your bearings as far as like where the property lines are. People are going to come through and have questions like that.
Can I add something else?
Please.
For security reasons now, please ring the doorbell before going in. Because have we found people naked, sleeping in bed, etc.? Yes,
Oh my goodness.
And then also, if you're someone like me who startles and shrieks loudly, that is always a good thing to ring the doorbell and announce realtor here.
I agree. Absolutely.
And then step in.
Absolutely. My husband's better about that than I am. Realtor, you know, after he's knocked and rung the doorbell. I have gone to show homes before where there are people in bed sleeping naked or in the shower, or, you know, they just forget, they weren't notified, whatever.
Correct.
Sometimes that awkward situation is going to happen and you just have to, I'm so sorry, you know, call the listing agent right away, explain what happened. But I'm glad you brought up the word safety, because first and foremost, always have safety at the front of your mind, right?
I will keep the key in my hand when I did find out, but that's a story for another day.
Absolutely. You have to. You should be going into holding open houses and doing showings with safety in mind. And what I will often say is, if you ever have a gut feeling that something's off or not right, like listen to your gut and get the heck out of there, right? There's no one that's going to be upset with you. I would never be upset with you if you held one of my listings open and you left because either someone or something frightened you. I would say absolutely leave, call me, let me know what's going on so I can explain it to my seller, but your safety comes first, right?
Same with giving flyers out. I cannot emphasize that enough. Don't stop to argue, over explain, just say I'm sorry for disturbing you and back out.
Absolutely. Okay, so now you're open for business. So what do? I recommend that you greet every guest with a warm welcome and eye contact. Hi, my name is, and you are. What brings you out today? How did you happen to hear about the open house? What is your timeline? Oh, you're moving in from out of state. When do you have to be here by? When does the new job start? Things of that nature. Are schools important to you? Make sure that you're asking those kind of questions. And I feel like That's how you get people's information. And I just start having a conversation with them. And then eventually they will let their guard down, they'll relax. And then if there's something that I say or some information that I can provide, then I'll say, jot your email, your phone number down here, and I'll follow up with you. It's really easy for me to get that information versus saying you must sign in and register.
Can I jump in?
Please,
I
yeah.
remember you said this so clearly to me because I was so worried that no one would take me seriously because I'm not from Minnesota and they would hear my accent. And you said, when you meet them first line of contact, you shake their hands. Hi, how are you? Good afternoon. And welcome to the open house. It's a lot of doubts that they may or may not have had gets wiped out. Oh, can she speak English? Can she not speak English? That gets wiped out. And then you feel at calm. And then it's a body language thing. And it's amazing how magically that has worked for me 7 years. Even now,
yeah,
when it comes to listing appointments.
It's interesting, even sometimes, you know, and I don't do open houses. I can't remember last time I did an open house, but if I had to do an open house to get business, I would do an open house. But it was always amazing to me that when I would extend my hand and say, hi, my name is Erin and you are welcome to my open house. A lot of people are just uncomfortable, like with that or looking in the eye. And you do have to be respectful of that. And that's why we're going to talk about the disc here.
Yeah.
My natural personality is that high I, that high D. So when I meet someone, I'm like, hi, my name is and you are welcome. So I'm not like that. I'm reading energy. Like, I'm excited that you're here. Thank you so much for coming out. And what I started to realize is that worked really well with some people. And by the end, we were like BFFs before we even left the open house. And with other people, they like disappeared. And I'd be like, where did they go? Well, the problem was I wasn't reading them. I needed to mirror and match. And the people that weren't the high eyes, when I was coming at them with all that energy, they were kind of like, whoa, sister, like, slow down. Like, you know, you're scaring me a little, right? And so I would have to learn to read their body language. And that's so important when they came through the door and trying to figure out from a personality perspective, where did they lie? Because if they were a high C, someone who wants to make sure the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, very compliant, their speech is going to be a little bit slower.
So comfortable, neutral.
Yeah,
absolutely neutral. And then that cements, especially for women in particular, when you shake hands, it cements the professional aspect of it all. And your relationship with that visitor starts on a professional level.
Absolutely.
It's so, but stay neutral. Voice needs to be neutral. Yeah. Energy needs to be neutral.
Until you get to know them and ask a few questions. And also too, I'll go so far as to say there are certain cultures that if they came in and I come across as a very strong, confident woman, there are going to be men in certain cultures that are turned off by that. They're not going to like that. So I've learned to just be very professional, slow my speech down, not be so excited like I normally would be if I saw someone that I really connected with or liked, and just be more conscientious of how I might be projecting. You notice how my speech has slowed down and I'm being a little bit more deliberate versus like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited again. And I don't think I was ever that way, but that can come across that way to someone who doesn't naturally have that personality type. So once I figured that out and met people where they were, that changed everything and allowed me to connect with people who I hadn't been connecting with from a personality standpoint prior to that. Okay, so that's saying assess your guest based on a disc. For those of you who aren't familiar, you can go to tonyrobbins.com and there's a free disc assessment on there that you can take. It tells you where you fall. D is for very driven, very direct. I is to the life of the party. You're an influencer. S is steady. They like predictability. C is they want to know they're rule followers. They want the I's dotted, T's crossed. So you want to kind of figure out where they're at. And my S's and C's, they want facts on the house. They want to know average price per square footage. They want to know, you know, the details. My D's, they just want to know what's the price. You know, like what are the terms. My I's are like, oh my gosh, what are the schools like? What are the neighbors like? Are there any kids right kids to play with? You know, so you got to figure that out. And that's that needs analysis that I'm talking about, and then meet them where they are. Offer information on your list of alternative homes that you familiarized yourself with. And then the lesson that my husband taught me, ask for the business. After all, that's why you're there. That's why you've done all the work leading up to holding the open house that day. You're there to find business. So don't be afraid to ask for it. The goal is to get their contact information, etc. All right. We kind of went through this already. Watch out for creepers, follow your gut, and if something feels unsafe, listen to it, get the heck out of there. On occasion, when my kids got a little bit older, one would come and just sit and do their homework while I held an open house. Or when my husband got to the business, he would come and hang out with me and we'd hold open houses together until we figured out that we could divide and conquer, and he could hold an open house at the same time I was, and then we were doing double the open houses. But you do want to be safe, and make sure that you're letting people know that you're going to go hold the open house and when they should hear from you, or have them check in with you at least once. Here's where you win the race. It's in the follow-up. Again, why go to the trouble of doing all of that work and then not follow up? And I used to be notorious for having, you know, Post-it notes and notebooks and pieces of paper that sometimes made it into my office and sometimes never left the, you know, the floor of my car, right? Or they got stuck and I lost it. Come up with a system, because most agents fail due to lack of follow-up. So I would immediately put contacts into my database and set people up on a smart plan or a drip campaign every Sunday evening. I would sit, and after dinner, before I put the kids to bed, that was what I would do. I would get into the habit of setting those contacts up on an automated search in MLS the same evening as my open house, so that I could start sending them properties. And then I would network with other agents when I got to the office the following Monday saying, hey, I have a buyer that's looking for X, Y, and Z. Do you have anything getting ready to come on the market? Because I love making those phone calls. If I could get the contact from somebody over the weekend on an open house and then call them on Monday and say, hey, I just found out about a house. It's exactly what you're looking for. It's not even on the market yet. Would you like some information on it? Do you want me to schedule a showing for you? Because everyone wants to be the first one at the new listing that's not on the market yet. And then always make sure that you create a task. This is before we had systems where the CRMs where you could create follow-up tasks, right? So I would just put it in my calendar. So that's kind of old school. I should probably remove it. But the point is, make sure that you create some sort of reminder to follow up with them after you set them up on all of these things and add them to your contact database. So,
question on this last piece. So I've been doing quite a few more lately. I hadn't done a lot of work.
how's it going?
I've been picking up people.
Okay. I'm not surprised with your personality that's gonna happen. I mean, that should be your bread and butter. Seriously. Yeah.
That's my goal right now. It's just open up, and it's been successful. But I put people on automated searches. Like they're like, yes, you're our realtor. Like, what are you? And generally, I'm having to sign a contract. We our first time. Like at my open houses, I had the opportunity to talk to private bid so that we could learn what they needed, all those things. I set up searches right when they were sitting there. So that was good. We got good, you know,
rapport.
Yeah. But now I've followed up. So this last weekend, now it's 2 people I picked up. They both are representatives already. Gave them searches. They're ready to look. They're looking. And I called right after the.
They go silent on you?
No, they're
okay.
I spoke to one this morning. Okay. And I text the other, and I haven't heard back from her. But I've followed up periodically since I've got it. But they still haven't found somewhere else to look at. And so I'm like, okay, I'm not. Am I doing too much, or because I don't do open houses this often, and so.
So you're feeling like because they haven't found anything to go look at that you might be reaching out too much.
Yeah, I don't.
No, I mean, I think they just haven't found anything to go look at yet, right? So here's something too that I learned over the years. I thought the minute you're going to say, you know, they were so engaged, now they're ghosting me, right? Is I would create a story in my mind that I would convince myself was true. They don't like me. That's why they stopped responding to me. They bought with someone else. That's why I haven't heard from them. They don't like anything I'm sending them. That's why they don't like to look at it. And here's what I realized. Because remember when I said I was committed? Even though I was having those thoughts, I still continue to follow up with them because my mentality was I'm going to continue to follow up with them until either they respond or they tell me to stop. Right? And what I have discovered over the years is when I'm having those moments where someone's not quite ready to go look at something yet, or they've got quiet, or they've ghosted me, is they're just busy with life. Maybe they went on a vacation that I knew nothing about and they've been gone to Europe for 10 days, right? And then all of a sudden they resurface and they circle back. So my advice to that is keep doing what you're doing, right? They engaged with you and gave you their email and allowed you to set them up on a search for a reason. Just stay engaged.
Using weekly or every 3 or 4 days?
I would say at least once a week. You know, if we're actively going out and looking at houses, I would say maybe every 3 to 4 days. But if they're not, I would say just ping them weekly to remind them that you're there, and so that you're the one they think of when something does pop up, they want to go see. Did you want to add something? Okay, just agreeing. Okay, Nora.
Well, I was just gonna follow up on the follow, or is where you win. I would add something else too. If you're doing open house for somebody else, give the listing agent feedback before you do the open house or immediately after, because their seller is going to ask. And if they have to follow up with you to get the feedback from the open house, you may not look as good in their eyes post another open house as if you're proactive and you give them the feedback immediately after your open house is done.
Yeah.
They're going to appreciate you very much.
100%.
And they'll probably be more likely to give you more open house opportunities.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, absolutely. So that also, what also goes along with that is if there's any issue or hiccup that happens at the open house, you don't wait till after the open house. If you can step away and let them know, you let them know right away. Make sure that you lock up. Make sure you leave the home in the way that you found it. If the lights are off when you got there, unless they tell you to leave them, shut them off. Lock the door, and yes, to your point, make sure that you give them feedback immediately, because I was really good at that. And guess what? I had my pick come Monday morning. What started happening was I was getting busy, so I stopped going around the office Monday morning. So what do you think happened? They all came looking for me. They all came looking for me. And when they would have a new listing or an important listing that they couldn't hold open, I was the agent that they called, because I did the things that Nora just talked about and made sure that I treated it as if it were my own.
Yeah, someone, whoever, I can't remember, I've had them for me for questions for different people. But when I called them their feedback, that was the first thing they said. No one ever calls me to feedback and they're open.
Be the one that does that, or send an email, but like come up with a system so that, you know, you're consistent with how you do that all the time. Here's the other thing that I would say to you that you want to be careful of. There will be sellers that shop their own open houses or send their friends and loved ones to shop what kind of job you're doing at their open house. So here's what I'll tell, here's what I'll say. When someone comes to their open house, make sure that first and foremost, you sell that home. What do you think of the house? Does it meet your needs? Does it meet your price point, right? And only once they told you that it's missing something key and you're certain that they're not interested, only then do you say, oh, well, I know the home a mile and a half away, because there have been occasions where sellers are like, I sent someone to my open house. All they did was try and sell them on other houses that were available on the market. So you want to make sure that you always try and sell the home you're in first and foremost, and only try and engage them to go to another open house or maybe see another house after they made the parent of that house to work with them. Because what you don't want to do is leave a seller with the feeling that they're just using my house to sell other houses. So then, you know, if I'm holding that open house for Jana and her seller report that to her, then I made her look bad, and now she's got to, you know, make up for, you know, what I did, and it's just not a good feeling, and she's likely not to give me another open house opportunity because I didn't handle that well. Does that make sense? What else? We got a few minutes left with questions. Any others?
Let me give you guys a personal anecdote.
Yes, please.
Cheryline was my realtor. Guess where I met her?
Open houses.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my husband and I read something online that says if you're thinking about buying a house in a year, start going to open houses a year in advance. You will get to know the market, get to know houses, whatever. Of course, it was comparative. We did that. We would go to like 4 open houses on Saturday, 4 open houses on Sunday in different areas. You know how many sheets I signed in on over like a month and a half?
How many?
I mean, easily over 40.
Did you give your correct information?
Yes.
Oh, you did. God bless you.
Followed up with me.
How many? Two people.
One of them being Cheryline.
Yeah. Yeah.
So don't not follow up.
Yeah. Well, and there's a prime example of someone who is giving their information. So again, you guys will have to decide if that makes sense for you. I was trained by the best. Yeah.
I think
No,
my
what's going
struggle with open houses is when, you know, we do the immediate follow-up right away, but if they're not finding something right away.
Keep following up, keep following up, keep following
I
up.
just lost the person this morning. They're actually under contract from maybe 2 months ago, but her bankruptcy was ending for September 1st. So I just sent her a note and said, hey, we're getting close to being able to go live shopping, and I just wanted to touch bases with you to see if there's anything that you want to switch up with your search, blah, blah, blah. And because she's been on the search for a while now. And she got back and she said, oh, we're gonna go with the Toll family brand, I'm so sorry. I said, well, you do realize we did sign a contract, but if, you know, you don't want to work, you're not gonna hold you to the end of this contract.
Right.
But yeah.
But it is up to you as to whether or not you want to mutually release her, you know, and some agents will and some won't. Some agents will say, you know, I've written an offer for you. I've invested time, energy, resources, and you signed a legally binding contract with me. And while I can appreciate that, you know, your relative is, you know, an agent, you've already made that commitment to me. So you can only be married to one person at a time. What's that?
Yes, so you think I should,
I don't push it back. I fight for him. I don't, and I'm not saying what you did was wrong. It's just that that's my personality. I'm gonna say, no, we're married and you can't divorce me until it's
what I
done.
wanted to do, but I responded to her and I said, I appreciate that. And if you want to terminate your contract, we can have a conversation. I would love for you guys to join me at the even partner Friday. So, and I did the flyer. So I tried to like soften it up.
You can always make your broker back up too, because it's really, I mean, like if you said, yes, I'm mutually release you, I'm not gonna say, no, well, we're not gonna do that. It's actually the brokerage that has to mutually release them. So if you ever wanted to, like, if you ever find yourself in an awkward position and you just need time to think on your feet, you can say, you know what? It has to be mutually agreed to release. I'm gonna have to talk to my broker to see if they're willing to do that. And then you told me and I coached you.
And then if you do cancel with them, you give them a protected list of all homes that you sent them on, unless you can say that you present.
Or
And then they got that with it because she went on a search. And so I'm like,
I got a
I
call.
haven't had time to think about it. Because really just had to like, just a little bit ago.
I got a call over the weekend from one of our Rochester agents, and he said, hey, I have been under contract with these buyers. I've also been to list their house. They can't get up a house at time. And they decided to let him make an offer for them upon the sale of their home. So after the open house, he met them at their house, they sat down, filled out the buyer contract, and said, you know, go ahead and sign this. We got another point we gotta get to, but we put the purchase agreement together tonight, you know, great. Go home, put the purchase agreement together, and it says, contingent upon the sale of our home, which will be listed by this agent at Keller Williams Premier, no later than contingent, and we can contingent off, you have to fill that out. Mrs. texted him back and said, hey, I'm okay with everything except for I have a good friend that's a real estate agent. My husband's friends with you. We feel like the right thing to do is allow you to represent us on the buy, and she's gonna represent us on the listing, even though they just sat at their kitchen table and spent time living in the house. But he said it sucked, but I said, okay, fine. I don't want to put my friend in the awkward position. I'll represent you on the purchase. You can represent you on the sale. Stinks for them because I thought they're going to have two. Right. But, you know, he backed off pretty quickly. Come to find out, they end up telling our agent, hey, we're just going to stay put. We're going to do some renovations, yada, yada. Well, then I get a text message Saturday morning from this client saying, hey, I talked to from the client. He said, hey, I talked to Paul with the agent. And I'm asking him to release us from our buy rep contract with him ASAP. He's not sure if he can. He said to reach out to you. So I had some conversation with that. So I called Paul and called one. I don't know those they say that they're going to make you guys another guy. Nobody sends a text to your ops manager saying, I need to be released ASAP. Yes, I guarantee they're being coached by another builder. Probably the one who's going to list the house to have you mutually release them, and they're going to write an offer. I said, but I can't be sure, so let me call this client. So I called the client and said, hey, oh, I texted the wrong person. I said, I'm not the broker, but I'm an associate broker. When things get escalated to me, obviously you come to me happening. Well, you know, my wife is just really upset. Why is your wife upset? I'm so sorry to hear that. Well, she's upset because we didn't realize that when we signed the buyer contract with Paul, it was for a year. I said, well, did you read the contract before you signed it? I said, well, you got a little testy with me. Will you hear me out? I said, I called you to hear you out. Did you read the contract? Well, he's my friend, so I didn't really read it. Okay, so you didn't read the legally binding contract that you signed with our agent, is what you're telling me. What about your wife? Did she sign it? Well, she works at Mayo and she didn't have time to sign it, so she told me to log into her email and sign it for her. Okay. So you've just shared with me that you knowingly forged her name. You signed it, but neither of you claim to know that you signed it for a year. And I said, let me ask you this. I said, I'm not saying that this is what's happening in this situation, but oftentimes when someone reaches out to us and they want us to, I said, because here's the deal, if you're gonna stay put and you're gonna renovate, just let the contract expire on its own. You're not gonna be out there looking, just let it expire. Well, you don't understand though, my wife is really, you know, my wife is really resistant to contracts.
She votes for the mayor, are you kidding?
I'm thinking to myself, why are you looking at houses then? I said, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. That she is really like careful and resistant to contracts because you just told me that instead of her taking the time to read the contract and sign it, she had you sign it for her. I said, I'm just gonna be very straightforward with you. Brian. So I'm just gonna be really straightforward with you, Brian. I'm not saying, because I have to be careful to not accuse people of doing something when I don't have evidence, but everything in my body is telling me it's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
I said, Brian, I'm not saying that this is the situation. And however, I've been in business for over 20 years. And typically when something like this happens, it means that there's another agent in the background that's coaching you to ask for cancellation so that they can go and write it off for. No, 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 none of that's happening. None of that's happening. The person who was going to help us with the sale of their home, she's not coached us at all. It's okay. Well, I'm so happy to hear that because you might not know this. That's a huge ethics violation. And personally, I would want to do business with an agent who's willing to violate our ethics, our rules of ethics. So I'm so happy to hear that that's not happening. Thank you for letting me know that. And I said, I just want to make sure, are you saying that if we were to agree to this, that you're staying put, you're not telling, no, we're just deciding we're gonna stay put and we're gonna renovate. I said, well, here's the deal. I've already spoke with Paul. He is not inclined to give you that mutual cancellation. And I'm going to support whatever Paul says. So I said, if that changes, I'm going to let Paul take it from here. If that changes for Paul and he decides to mutually release you, then I will support him in that. But if he doesn't, I'm going to support him in that as well. Thanks. Have a great day. Bye. I'll Paul fill him in. Paul is a newer agent. He's feeling, you know, a certain kind of way. He's really debating on whether or not he should release them from the contract. I get busy. This happened on Saturday or something. It's happened on Saturday morning. I get busy with my day. At the end of the day, my broker in Rochester called me. She said, I got the strangest phone call. You might get an upset phone call from one of our agents named Wendy. Another one of my agents named Wendy is calling my broker because her good friend, Jenny at Edina Realty, is representing some buyers that want to see a new listing of hers. But Jenny's out of town, so she wants Wendy to show for her. This is my life, by the way. Man, that's so very. I know it's hard to follow.
So Wendy's part of KW.
So Wendy's with KW, and
Jenny's with the Edina.
Jenny's with the Edina. So Jenny's with the Edina. Okay. So Wendy is getting ready for Africa the next day. I'm giving you all the details. Yeah. So they were at the house taking photographs of a home that was going to go on the market after she got back in 3 weeks. But Jenny got wind of it, so called Wendy and said, "Hey, I'm out of town. Can you show your listing to my clients?" Wendy shows it to the client want to write it up. That was on, oh wait, so the calls I got were on Sunday. Wendy shows it to him on Saturday. Wendy calls my broker because she's upset because Jenny has clients that are being held hostage in the contract that Paul has with them. So he lied to me on Saturday when I asked him, so if we mutually release you, are you telling me that you're going to stay here and you're just going to renovate? You're not going to, no, we don't have any plans.
They wanted to put the offer in.
It's like, I'm up in Green Bay with my kids. My wife's at home. She's really upset. I'm like, I still don't understand why she's upset, but okay, she's upset. So what they were trying to do was get Paul to release them so they could write an offer on Wendy's listing with Jenny, who was the agent from the guy that was going to with their listing. So I said to my broker, I said, you're absolutely not going to listen to this contract. Here's the conversation that I had this morning with this client. I said, I knew that they were up to something, but I didn't really know. You know, you just know from experience, right? So then I had to call Wendy and do damage control because Wendy's now upset because she could get her listing. So I said, Wendy, here's the deal. If this were you, you want me to have your back as well. I said, Paul has expended time, energy, and resources, has written an offer for these folks that didn't get accepted. Gave up a potential listing, you know, like this is a win for you because you're going to sell your listing. This is a win for Jenny and Edina because she's going to get the listing and the buy. And it's certainly a win for the client, but not a win for Paul. And we're a culture of win-win or no deal. So we're not releasing them. How does that work for Paul?
So what happened?
So they are stuck in a buyer contract with Paul until August 1st of 2024. But here's what they could have done, and this is what I said. I said, let Paul write the offer. He has them under contract. And when he said, well, they won't work with them, I said, well, then that's their choice. I'm gonna be stuck in my contract for the next year.
The was
Yeah, so.
My thing is, so exactly, and it's similar to what I have right now, right?
I know that I would not let
What do you do? So if you go in hostage in the contract, then how?
Here's what you have to be careful of. There are gonna be some people that might hop on Google and give you a bad review, or they're telling all their family and friends and they're holding them hostage.
So you're not gonna go out with.
So you do have to be careful and you have to be okay with the consequences of holding someone to a contract, right? But me, especially if I have a feeling that they're trying to do me dirty and do a backdoor deal, you're not getting out of this contract.
Well, like her response was, you know, we want to work with the family friend, because I said, was there something that I didn't do correctly, or is there something that?
Here's what I would push you guys to follow. I certainly appreciate the fact that I work with family friend. I truly do appreciate that I've already poured some time out of eating research with the company. So I think that a fair thing to do, and I'm sure you'll agree though, is allow me to refer you to your credit, maybe a 25% referral fee. If you're willing to agree to that, if she's willing to agree to that, then I will mutually release you. If they're not willing to agree to that, if you're not willing to agree to that, then the contract. I think you would agree that for
Like,
yeah. And then have you put in writing that you usually release her? Like send in an email or a text or anything? All right, check that. Then I've got to jet because I have to be in Burnsville at 3:45. Any other questions while she's looking that up?
thank you.
Yes, yes, thank you guys for being here. I can't wait to hear about your open house stories. I have all kinds of them. I should have a pastor who just shares my crazy.
Yeah, I did not. I did that. I just.
Yeah, I would just, so here's what you could do. One, hey Heather, you know, I've had time to think about this today and ponder it, you know, if you are under a new management contract with me, and I think it's only fair that either A, you honor that, and you proceed to work together, because I want to give you option 4B. If you want to work with your friend, I'm happy to work out a referral arrangement with her, and upon you know that agreement, then I will usually release you. But until then, you're still under contract.
I'm saying.
All right,
I was a little frustrated. Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. Go get them, guys. Carlos, thanks for being here, buddy.
Yeah.
Can't wait to welcome you on as an agent. Hope I didn't just scare you away.
That was just way to go this year too.
Oh, yes, there's lots of them. They're fun to share sometimes.
I always get scared about going
Yeah.
about it because I think that they're gonna be like, I don't wanna go out with you, you know, or so it's like, if you don't wanna work with me, I don't wanna be there.
Right, but there's still the accountability of
The contract.
responsibility.
You're right, I don't know, right.
You can't sign a contract that you're and move into the house and 3 days later say, you know, this just won't fit anymore. Can we like get rid of
Or if they were to say, you know, we're just gonna take a not, you know, whatever, like she said, you know, and that, but then she did her due diligence to do the digging to say, no, they're lying to me. But you know, if you came across maybe better that way, but to say that you want to do it with someone else, it's like, we're right under contract. So I did say that, and I didn't release her, so that's good.
That is good. So save it.
Because I was doing, you know, all my we call it, prospecting and stuff. So I was busy doing that and doing that, and as I got her, and then I had to leave the address the week to get here.
Yeah.
I'm like, freaking waiting on this lady for months. Because her bankruptcy doesn't expire until September 1st. So she said, well, we still haven't heard much of a pre-approval from the lender. I sent her to a lender. But you can't get your pre-approval until your bankruptcy is appraised. So there's not a pre-approval to be had just yet. He's told you what you guys probably can afford. Yeah. But we can't, there's no pre-approval just yet, yeah. Yeah. I'm so happy. Okay.
Well, anything you can at least get the referral.
Yeah, I that's good because man, it's like, whew, then thank you guys.
Yeah.
That was good. I love these meetings. And because like most of the stuff you know, right? You learn it, you know. But I don't do a lot of open houses until most recently.